Hello students, today I am going to explain lesson number 3 of class 11, Discovering Tut. The saga continues by A.R. Williams. Before I start, I would request all of you to please subscribe to my channel English and Science Zone so that you will get the notifications of my upcoming videos. Thanks all of you. The author A.R. Williams developed a love for reading at a very young age, and in the 4th grade, when an assignment to write their own works of fiction was given, it occurred to him that he too could craft tales for others to enjoy. He loved reading books. The story deals with the mysteries and various theories regarding the life and death of the youngest ruler of ancient Egypt, Tutankhamun. Let's begin. He was just a teenager when he died, the last heir of a powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. He was laid to rest, laden with gold, and eventually forgotten. Since the discovery of his tomb in 1922, the modern world has speculated about what had happened to him, with murder being the most extreme possibility. Now, leaving his tomb for the first time in almost 80 years, Tut has undergone a CT scan that offers new clues about his life and death and provides precise data for an accurate forensic reconstruction of the boyish pharaoh. An angry wind stirred up ghostly dust devils as King Tut was taken from his resting place in the ancient Egyptian cemetery known as the Valley of the Kings. Dark-bellied clouds had scudded across the desert sky all day and now were veiling the stars in casket grey. It was 6 p.m. on 5th January 2005. The world's most famous mummy glided head first into a CT scanner brought here to probe the lingering medical mysteries of this little understood young ruler who died more than 3,300 years ago. So what happened? A CT scanner was brought to the Valley of the Kings where King Tut's mummy was to be probed under the CT scanner to find out the medical mysteries of his era. All afternoon, the usual line of tourists from around the world had descended into the cramped rock-cut tomb some 26 feet underground to pay their respects. They gazed at the murals on the walls of the burial chamber and peered at Tut's gilded face, the most striking feature of his mummy-shaped outer coffin lid. Some visitors read from guidebooks in a whisper. Others stood silently, perhaps pondering Tut's untimely death in his late teens, or wondering with a shiver if the pharaoh's curse, death, or misfortune falling upon those who disturbed him was really true. That day, there were the usual line of tourists who had come from all over the world to pay their respects to the pharaoh, and the striking feature of this mummy is the shaped outer coffin lid, which shows the gilded face of Tut. And some visitors were very frightened also. They were talking in whispers about the mummy's curse. Like whoever finds the mummy is the curse of the mummy, which says that death or misfortune falls upon those who disturbed him. Was it true or not was really a big question. The mummy is in a very bad condition because of what Carter did in the 1920s, said Zahi Hawass, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, as he leaned over the body for a long first look. Howard Carter, was the British archaeologist who in 1922 discovered Tut's tomb after years of futile searching. Its contents, though hastily ransacked in antiquity, were surprisingly complete. They remain the richest royal collection ever found and have become part of the pharaoh's legend. Stunning artifacts in gold, their eternal brilliance meant to guarantee resurrection, caused a sensation at the time of his discovery and still get the most attention. But Tut was also buried with everything he would want in the afterlife: board games, a bronze razor, linen undergarments, cases of food and wine. So the mummy was in a really bad condition because Howard Carter had done a lot of things with the mummy which had put it into such a bad condition. And this was done long, long back in the years 1922. And King Tut's mummy was laid to rest with all his everyday things which he would require in his afterlife, like board games, bronze razors, linen undergarments, case of food and wine. So that's how Egyptians buried the kings when they died. After months of careful recording the pharaoh's funerary treasures, Carter began investigating his three nested coffins, willow and olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflowers, the faded evidence of a burial in March or April. When he finally reached the mummy, though he ran into trouble, the ritual resins had hardened, cementing Tut to the bottom of a solid gold coffin. No amount of legitimate force could move them. Carter wrote later what was to be done. Once Carter had found the place where the mummy was kept, then he started looking at the pharaoh's funerary treasures and investigating whatever was there inside that. And at last he started opening the coffins in which King Tut rested. The coffins were nested in one into another, and when he opened the first, he found flowers over there which showed that the burial must have been in March or April. And then when he reached the mummy, he found that the resins which were used to preserve the mummy had hardened onto the solid gold coffin below him. And whatever they tried to do, they couldn't move the mummy over there. And at last Carter thought of what could be done. The sun can beat down like a hammer this far south in Egypt, and Carter tried to loosen the resins for several hours. He set the mummy outside in blazing sunshine that heated it to 149 degrees Fahrenheit. Nothing budged. He reported with scientific detachment that the consolidated material had to be chiseled away from beneath the limbs and trunks before it was possible to raise the king's remains. So when Howard's people tried to remove the mummy, they could not remove it because the resins had hardened and he had got stuck to the bottom of the gold coffin. So they took the coffin out and they tried to put it in the sunshine. In Egypt it's really hot, but still after keeping the mummy in sunshine, there was nothing which happened to that mummy. And at last he had only one thing to do. He had to cut away the mummy from beneath the coffin. And so he had to cut the mummy into pieces so that he could take out the mummy from the coffin. In his defense, Carter really had little choice. If he hadn't cut the mummy free, thieves most certainly would have circumvented the guards and ripped it apart to remove the gold. In Tut's time, the royals were fabulously wealthy, and they thought or hoped they could take the riches with them. For his journey to the great beyond, King Tut was lavished with glittering goods, precious collars, inlaid necklaces and bracelets, rings, amulets, a ceremonial apron, sandals, sheaths for his fingers and toes, and the now iconic inner coffin and mask, all of pure gold. To separate Tut from his adornments, Carter's men removed the mummy's head and severed nearly every major joint. Once they had finished, they reassembled the remains on a layer of sand in a wooden box with padding that concealed the damage, the bed where Tut now rests. So Carter defended whatever he had done. He said, if I hadn't cut the mummy out and taken it out, then robbers and thieves would have taken away all the gold which was there in King Tut's coffins and in the place where he was laid to rest. and there were so many things which I had told you just now. And Carter's men, they had cut the mummy's head and almost every joint in the body. And at last, when they were able to separate Tut out of his coffin, they took a wooden box and they put a layer of sand on it, and then they put some padding, and at last they put down the mummy one by one, all the parts, and now the mummy rests on the same sand box padding in it, and it doesn't show the damage that the mummy of Tut has undergone. Archaeology had changed substantially in the intervening decades, focusing less on treasure and more on the fascinating details of life and intriguing mysteries of death. It also uses more sophisticated tools, including medical technology. In 1968, more than 40 years after Carter's discovery, an anatomy professor x-rayed the mummy and revealed a startling fact. Beneath the resin that cakes his chest, his breastbone and front ribs are missing. Now, archaeologists are not greedy for the gold or the treasures. They want to find out all the fascinating details of life and the mysteries of death. An anatomy professor, he x-rayed the mummy and he revealed a fact that beneath the resin that was there on his chest, his breastbone and the front ribs were actually missing. Today, diagnostic imaging can be done with computed tomography or CT, by which hundreds of x-rays in cross-section are put together like slices of bread to create a three-dimensional virtual body. What more would a CT scan reveal of Tut than the X-ray? And could it answer two of the biggest questions still lingering about him? How did he die and how old was he at the time of his death? So now, because of the CT scan, lots of information about the mummy can be revealed. Even though the X-ray had given lots of answers, but still professors now, they wanted to know two big questions. How did Tut die and how old was he at the time of his death? King Tut's demise was a big event even by royal standards. He was the last of his family's line and his funeral was a death rattle of a dynasty. But the particulars of his passing away and its aftermath are unclear. Amenhotep, Tut's father or grandfather, was a powerful pharaoh who ruled for almost 4 decades at the height of the 18th dynasty's golden age. His son Amenhotep IV succeeded him and initiated one of the strangest periods in the history of ancient Egypt. The new pharaoh promoted the worship of the Aten, the sun disk, changed his name to Akhenaten or servant of the Aten, and moved the religious capital from the old city of Thebes to the new city of Akhenaten, known now as Amarna. He further shocked the country by attacking Amun, a major god, smashing his image and closing his temples. It must have been a horrific time, said Ray Johnson, director of the University of Chicago's Research Center in Luxor, the site of ancient Thebes. And then Akhenaten went a little wacky. At that time, Amenhotep's son, Amenhotep IV, succeeded him, and he made so many different rules in Egypt. He started changing the rules, he changed the capital, and everyone thought that he was a little bit wacky, little bit mad ruler. And the family that had ruled for centuries had now come to an end. After Akhenaten's death, a mysterious ruler named Smenkhare appeared briefly and exited with hardly a trace. And then a very young Tutankhamun took the throne. King Tut, as he is widely known today, the boy king soon changed his name to Tutankhamun, living image of Amun, and oversaw a restoration of the old ways. He reigned for about 9 years and then died unexpectedly. So after the death of all the rulers who had come for a brief time, at last there was no one to sit on the throne actually. So young Tutankhamun, he had to sit on the throne, and he ruled for about 9 years, and he also died. Regardless of the fame and the speculations about his fate, Tut is one mummy among many in Egypt How many? No one knows. The Egyptian Mummy Project, which began an inventory in the late 2003, has recorded almost 600 so far and is still counting. The next phase, scanning the mummies with a portable CT machine donated by the National Geographic Society and Siemens. Its manufacturer, King Tut, is one of the first mummies to be scanned, in death as in life, moving regally ahead of his countrymen. So, the company Siemens and the National Geographic Society had donated a CT machine, and now with this machine, they were going to scan King Tut and find out the cause of his death. A CT machine scanned the mummy head to toe, creating 1700 digital X ray images in cross section. Tut's head scanned in 0.62 millimeter slices to register its intricate structure takes on an eerie detail in the resulting image. With Tut's entire body similarly recorded, a team of specialists in radiology, forensics, and anatomy began to probe the secrets that the winged goddess of a gilded burial shrine protected for so long. So, a CT machine was arranged and it was going to scan Tut from head to toe and find out exactly what was the cause of his death and what had happened to him and what was his age. At night of the scan, workmen carried from the tomb in his box like pall bearers. They climbed a ramp and a flight of stairs into the swirling sand outside, then rose on a hydraulic lift into the trailer that held the scanner. 20 minutes later, two men emerged, sprinting for an office nearby, and returned with a pair of white plastic fans. The $1 million scanner had quit because of sand in a cooler fan. Curse of the Pharaoh, joked a guard nervously. So when King Tut was taken out from his tomb and taken into the CT scanner, they found out that the sand nearby had blocked the white fans which were used in the CT scanner, and the people had to go back and get a new pair of fans because the $1 million scanner had quit because of the sand and the cooler fan. So one guard over there, he was jokingly and he was nervously saying it's because of the curse of the Pharaoh. Eventually, the substitute fans worked well enough to finish the procedure. After checking that no data had been lost, the technicians turned Tut over to the workmen who carried him back to his tomb. Less than 3 hours after he was removed from his coffin, the Pharaoh again rested in peace where the funerary priest had laid him so long ago. So this time there was no mistake. All the data was properly taken in, and at last, after 3 hours, they returned Tut back to the tomb from where they had taken him, and he laid there once again quietly as the priests had laid him very, very long ago. Back in the trailer, a technician pulled up astonishing images of Tut on a computer screen. A grey head took shape from a scattering of pixels, and the technician spun and tilted it in every direction. Neck vertebrae appeared as clearly as in an anatomy class. Other images revealed a hand, several views of the rib cage, and a transection of the skull. But for now, the pressure was off. Sitting back in his chair, Zahi Abbas smiled, visibly relieved that nothing had gone seriously wrong. I didn't sleep last night, not for a second, he said. I was so worried, but now I think I will go and sleep. So now, after studying all the images, they quickly took all the images which were there, which they had scanned actually, and they saw the neck vertebrae, the rib cage, the skull, and all such things as if they had seen just in an anatomy class. And at last, Zahi Abbas said that he was now relieved that nothing had gone wrong, and he was now going to sleep because he was so tired. The data that they had captured was astonishing, and it showed all the bones of King Tut. By the time we left the trailer, descending metal stairs to the sandy ground, the wind had stopped. The winter air lay cold and still, like death itself, in this valley of the departed. Just above the entrance to Tut's tomb stood Orion, the constellation that the ancient Egyptians knew by the soul of Osiris, the god of the afterlife, watching over the boy king. So once the work was done, all of them left from there. And when they left, the wind stopped suddenly, and the winter air was cool and still, and it looked as if someone had died just now. And in the valley of departed, there in front of the tomb, at the entrance to Tut's tomb, was Orion, the constellation, and also they knew that the god of afterlife was watching over the boy king. So Orion was considered to be the soul of Osiris, the god of afterlife, and who watched over the boy king according to ancient Egyptians. That's all for today. Like and subscribe. Thank you and bye.